Hello, good evening. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Acting immediately and without hesitation. That's how the Army says its own responded today as an active duty sergeant fired upon soldiers at Fort Stewart in Georgia. What we are learning tonight about how this happened at a major military installation. President Trump saying this moments ago.
The entire nation is praying for the victims and their families, and hopefully they'll fully recover, and we can put this chapter behind, but we're not going to forget what happened.
Plus the president alongside Tim Cook at the White House, and is there a possible meeting in the works with Vladimir Putin? All that as President Trump's new worldwide tariffs are set to hit in just a matter of hours. Also tonight, he wants Bill Clinton under oath. He wants all the Epstein files as well. Congressman James Comer, who oversees the House Oversight Committee, live with us tonight here on the Hill. Who might he subpoena next? I'm going to ask him. And the push for drone dominance. Our Kelly Meyer with an exclusive interview inside the Pentagon. How the military is now trying to adapt. But first tonight here from the Hill, we're learning more tonight about that shooting at a U.S. military base, Fort Stewart in Georgia.
Mutual aid request for a gunshot wound on Fort Stewart. It'll be building 8422nd Brigade, 8422nd Brigade, gunshot wound, mutual aid.
That was part of the 911 call from the Army base just south of Savannah, southwest about 40 miles. Authorities say 5 active duty soldiers shot by one of their own using his personal handgun, all taken to area hospitals in stable condition. The commander-in-chief vowing justice.
The Army Criminal Investigation Division is on site to ensure that the perpetrator of this atrocity, which is exactly what it is, will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Here's what we know at this hour. Fort Stewart, the Army airfield there, spans about 280,000 acres, trains, equips, deploys active and reserve Army soldiers. It's home to the 3rd Infantry Division. And just before 11 o'clock this morning, that's when the first call came in. 10 minutes later, Fort Stewart locked down. 5 minutes after that, emergency personnel dispatched. Then at about 11:30, about 40 minutes or so after the call came in, an arrest in that shooting. About an hour later, the lockdown lifted for most of the base, the all clear then given. The suspect is being named as a sergeant, Cornelius Radford. He's in custody. He's been interviewed. No word on a motive, but the Army says a brave group immediately responded.
I would also like to thank the brave soldiers who immediately intervened and subdued the shooter. These soldiers, without a doubt, prevented further casualties.
Just part of the story there, and we will learn more about that in the days to come. Joining me now here on the Hill tonight, retired U.S. Air Force Special Operations Commander Major Glenn Ignazio. Glenn, thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. The 5 in stable condition, and that is certainly great news as we learn of it this evening. But among the questions tonight still remains, how was this sergeant able to get his personal weapon onto the base there to carry out this attack?
Well, it's great to be with you. Yeah, let's get to that question. You know, I was hearing a lot of people about describing this. It's actually very easy. Now, when it comes to the actual military weapons, they're controlled very, very tightly. And unless you're doing something or you're tied to a combat operation, you don't usually have access to them. But when you're talking about a personal weapon, firearm, whatever, well, first of all, there's rules on base, all the bases, Air Force, Army, whatever, that you're not supposed to hold those or carry those. In fact, if you live in the barracks or even have on-base housing, you're supposed to check them in with military, police, security forces and let them keep it in an armory. But as far as how to take this in, literally, you get access to the base because you're a military member. You can have it in your car, on your person, and the same thing walking into it. So it's not really that complicated or difficult, and it's not plausible to search every car for something like that.
So you say it's not plausible, but it begs the question, do protocols need to change? Because I can go through a list here. Fort Hood, 2009, the Navy Yard, in 2013, the Naval Air Station, Pensacola, 2019, or the Navy Yard might have been a little later than that, in 2015 or so. The point is, we have seen these incidences on military installations, military sites, and then this today.
Yeah, those former incidents actually really proposed much changes as far as what we do for locking down, how they respond to first responders. So since that time from Fort Hood, which was a fundamental terrorist, the same thing, Navy Yard was disillusioned, and also was a foreign person that was training in Pensacola. There were different motives. So the motive's going to be interesting here. But at the same time, there have been procedures that have been put in place to stop the maximum amount of damage that something could occur like this. So like I said, unfortunately, it's easy. I mean, the penalties to a military member, if you're caught, are significant. Maybe they need to be even more significant to deter that. But to carry something on base like that, it's not very difficult. But again, they can't search every car. They do random access to automobiles. But that's the facts of the situation right now.
Glenn Ignazio with us tonight here on the Hill. As I mentioned, those 5 said to be in stable condition in local hospitals. And now the Army trying to figure out why this sergeant carried this out today. Sir, thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.
So we heard from President Trump about this. He topped his comments with it when he was in the Oval Office. Speaking about that tragedy, he also talked about the search for peace abroad in Ukraine and a possible face-to-face meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. With me now, Chris Steyerwalt, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, and Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff. Hello to you both. Lots going on here. The president speaking about that tragedy at home, searching for peace abroad. Mick, let's start there, and then I'll move to Tim Cook and Apple and what we just witnessed. On Vladimir Putin, it seems that the president sounded hopeful, maybe. I don't know if optimistic is the right word, but is this, I don't know, fool me however many times at this point, shame on me.
Yeah, I think Trump's got a problem here. He doesn't know what to do with Putin. I think he's got at least he's got a relationship with Netanyahu that allows him to continue to stay engaged in Gaza and so forth. Clearly, he's had tremendous successes with some of the other sort of conflagrations around the world and so forth. But Putin continues to be a challenge. I think he knows now that Putin is the major reason there's no peace in Ukraine. It was not a Zelensky problem, as Trump had expected when he came into office. And I'm not sure he knows what to do. I'm not sure he has credibility right now with Putin. Once you lose credibility in a negotiation, it's very difficult to get back. He knows that, but he also knows that you can get it back. So be curious to see how this plays out. I think this is its own thing. Don't look to Donald Trump to do everything he's done with everybody else, because it's just not working with Putin. He's going to have to try something else.
Here was the president asked about this, Chris, moments ago.
We had some very good talks with President Putin today, and there's a very good chance that we could be ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
All right, so the possibility of a meeting very soon, we'll see, I guess.
Well, I mean, you know the problem. Mick, I'm sure can speak to this, but H.R. McMaster, any number of people who served in the first Trump administration, there is the problem that Trump gets his head turned around. He gets spun, and he gets charmed, and foreign leaders flatter him, tell him what he wants to hear, and all of a sudden, people who had spent all of this time getting him lined up in one direction, he says, oh, but he was very nice to me. I liked how nice he was. We know when the president met with the Russian dictator in Helsinki, it was a real goat rodeo. It was a disaster. So this is tough because it's a personal relationship, and Trump sees things as a person first. All
right, so that's what he was asked about in the Oval. Of course, there was and you see Steve Witkoff there meeting with Vladimir Putin today. There was the event in the Oval, Mick and Chris, about this added $100 billion investment from Apple today that is going to be building basically here inside the United States. Great news, fantastic news, what you want to see in the United States of America, no doubt about it. But here's what I want the audience to know tonight, Mick. And Mick knows it, Chris knows it, but put up the graphic, Mark, if we can. Because the biggest companies in this country right now, they've all had recent earnings calls, okay? Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Meta have all said that in the year forward, capital expenditure projections, basically what they're going to be spending to build things, totals basically a third of $1 trillion. We are at the beginning of an AI arms race. That is what they all are doing, Mick. And I just wonder if Tim Cook walked into the Oval Office there and gets no tariffs on iPhones, no tariffs on chips, says they're going to build some things here with maybe iPhones, maybe down the line in the glass at some point down the line. If Tim Cook just got everything he wanted, given this is what they are all doing with an AI arms race.
Look, it's unequivocally good information, right? It's good news, and Trump is right to
100%, as I said, yeah.
This is American companies investing in America. Yay, team. This is fantastic.
Yep.
But my very erudite friend just said something about Mr. Putin that could apply to business leaders as well. Are they just telling him what he wants to hear? Did Cook walk in and say, I'm going to do this anyway, but I might as well get some credit for it and see if I can deal with this? This is what I'd be telling the president if I'm in there tonight after this meeting closes. So, Mr. President, this is fantastic news. We need to make sure they follow through. We need to make sure this is not a delay tactic. This is not just telling you what you want to hear. We need to make sure that when they say they're going to spend this money, they spend this money. We can't let this go 6 months. There's a risk. There's a risk that even if they're going to spend this money, they're talking about waiting till after Trump is leaving, and they're waiting for a next administration to change trade policy. So that's good news, no question. But trust but verify, I think, is the best way to approach this.
Chris?
I didn't hear the end of what Mick said.
I was going to say I couldn't tell.
But I assume it was as brilliant as brilliant brain droppings of a brilliant mind yet again. The one thing I do know for sure is that everybody loves to demonize these tech companies, right? Okay. It's very popular to beat up on the tech companies. They're driving the U.S. economy. You take the Magnificent Seven out of the S&P 500. You pull those out of the U.S. economy. So all that jibberty jabber at the beginning, during the campaign and at the beginning of the administration, the FTC's coming after you. We're breaking you up. No.
Yeah, they are spending money all over the place.
That's right.
We saw it with Apple today. You're going to see it from all these companies going forward. And as Mick said, great for America, great for the country. Everyone wants to see it, but I want folks to know more of this is coming. And you're seeing this. Mick, are you with me? For example, I was watching in your state, North Carolina, $10 billion, Amazon. They're building an AI data center there.
Yeah, did Steiwalt hear where I said he was a very erudite individual? Did he at least hear that far?
That's stipulated for the record, Mick. That's just par for the course.
It is great news. Let's hope it. Let's make sure we follow through on this and make sure this is not just telling the president what he wants to hear.
All right. Mick Mulvaney, thank you, sir. Chris Steiwalt, see you back later in the show. Still to come tonight here on the Hill, the new instruments of war. How the U.S. is using drones on the front lines. We're going to take you inside the Pentagon and behind the scenes on the other side of the break. And he just issued subpoenas for Bill and Hillary Clinton in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. How far will he go? James Comer, the head of the Oversight Committee, with me live. I thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. I'm Blake Berman. Kelly Meyer back in 4 minutes with me. Steiwalt hanging around as well. Stay with us. NewsNation, President Trump responding here within the last 30 minutes or so to reporter questions about a possible meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The president saying there is a good chance that maybe something comes about here in the next week or so, but he would not confirm the date of a possible meeting. The president also expressed that he's been disappointed before. Now, it follows the White House's special envoy, Steve Witkoff. He was meeting in Moscow today with Putin. And just about 48 hours or so before the president's Friday deadline for Russia to reach a peace deal with Ukraine. Meantime, the war between Russia and Ukraine rages on, as you know, and it's the first really, when you think about it, the first really major drone war that Russia has launched. It's launched thousands of drones at Ukraine during the 3-year war, hitting critical infrastructure, businesses, cities across the country. Homes and buildings in Ukraine's capital of Kyiv destroyed. One of the latest drone strikes killing 2 people, injuring nearly 50 as well. Russia's defense ministry says its military forces shot down more than 70 Ukrainian drones just this week alone. And you might remember from a couple months ago, Ukraine conducted a surprise drone attack on Russia in June, destroying some of its most important aircraft, thousands of miles inside Russia. Here in the U.S., the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announcing plans within the recent weeks to create as the Pentagon puts it, drone dominance by fast-tracking drone production and training for the U.S. military. Our Kelly Meyer was inside the Pentagon earlier this week, getting a look at what they are doing there and how they plan on handle all of this going forward. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, Blake.
This is fascinating because it's in many ways the new frontier.
Absolutely.
And in a way, the U.S. is still trying to compete here, or at least figure it out.
Fascinating on so many levels, and you mentioned it there because of what's going on in the war in Ukraine. We're seeing the use of these drones really for the first time, and what the Pentagon drone chief told me this week is that that's really changing the game as we move forward. That could be the future of conflicts going forward, and he did mention that could save human lives on the front lines, but also there's this push in the U.S. to make sure they have a deterrent here, and right now, Russia and China are outpacing the U.S. And we talked about it yesterday with the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, pushing on the commercial level for drones in America made. And China is outpacing us there on the commercial level. 90% of it, the consumer market, is with China. Russia and China, the same thing with the military, outpacing the U.S. So we really got to step up our game in terms of the military, the U.S. military stepping it up. And that's what they told me they are doing here, trying to fast track this.
What about the private sector jumping in?
So that's really interesting. That's a big part of this because President Trump's EO in June is pushing for drone dominance, and the defense secretary pushing for this as well. And what they're doing is they have events at the Pentagon as well as events across the country, one coming up in Indiana next week. And they're going to bring in the private sector. They're going to show their technology. And some of these prototypes that they're going to show could be used on the front lines, potentially be selected. And that's a big thing. They're going to be U.S. made, made in America products, manufactured here. That means jobs here. And it really is pushing forward, trying to make sure that they get this done in a short amount of time, cutting the prototype that the undersecretary showed us, cutting the time from 5 to 6 years to 18 months. And they want to do hundreds of thousands of these within a month over time. So they're really trying to step it up.
It is the new frontier. We talk about it on this show all the time. Kelly Meyer, live with me tonight. Catch you later in the show.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Want to take you real quick, if we can, down to South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. Nancy Mace, she is the congresswoman there running for governor in Myrtle Beach, holding a town hall. We listen live.
Because the press says, I like my pajamas. They want to write about my pajamas, they want to write about my memes, and they're funny. I think it's funny. Some of it's very funny because the ridiculousness of the left, they're insane, they're lunatics. I have a little bit of fun with it. I want you to know what it's like to drive 12 hours through the night to get to D.C. to vote on the big, beautiful bill. I did that. I did it. We were in a nice van. We had some dark chocolate. We stayed up all night. And we did it. We got there and we voted like 10 minutes later. It was fantastic. But that's what I'm willing to do for Donald Trump. When my flight got canceled, my staff and I got in a car, in a van, and we hit the road. And we drove 12 hours through the storms, through the rain, through the night, just so we could vote on the big, beautiful bill. The last thing I want to say, the two more things, is that when we elected Mike Johnson as Speaker in January, it was really important for Donald Trump to get the Speaker that he wanted, and that we did it in the first try. Because if we didn't do it in the first try, it was going to be days.
All right, so a live look, live listen there. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It is, of course, the August recess for lawmakers, and this is what they do. They go home, they go to their district, they talk about what they think has been a success or not. In this case, for Republicans, they're trying to sell the one big beautiful bill, as we just heard Nancy Mace reference there. We'll see more of these events here in the upcoming weeks. All right, still much more ahead tonight here on the Hill. He is one of the most powerful folks in this town, certainly up on Capitol Hill. As head of the House Oversight Committee that investigates the government, he is the one that's pushing for transparency with the Epstein case and has questions for Bill Clinton. He is James Comer, linked up live there in Kentucky. The congressman with us, other side of the break. Here to the Hill on NewsNation tonight. The latest on two major investigations up on Capitol Hill, the Jeffrey Epstein files and former President Joe Biden's mental condition while he was in office. The Republican-led House Oversight Committee issuing subpoenas to former President Bill Clinton and the former First Lady, Secretary of State as well, Hillary Clinton. The Clintons' deposition dates set in October. This is the Epstein case. Clinton, the fifth former United States president to receive a congressional subpoena. The Oversight Committee, though, didn't stop there, also subpoenaing 6 attorneys general from the past 4 presidential administrations, Democrats and Republicans. You see the list. Along with 2 former FBI directors. You probably know the names, Mueller and Comey. Meantime, happening tomorrow in the Biden investigation, Anita Dunn, the former president's senior advisor, set to testify before the Oversight Committee. Dunn is one of 5 former Biden aides that are expected to speak to the committee in the upcoming days. Later this month, the committee could hear as well from the former press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. So far, there have been at least 9 interviews with former Biden aides, 3 who have pled the 5th. So where do these investigations stand tonight? The man who knows better than anyone else. He is the Kentucky Republican James Comer, head of the Oversight Committee. Congressman, thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill.
My pleasure.
So let me start with the subpoenas that you sent out yesterday, 10. And as I laid out there, both sides of the aisle spans like 20 years of Washington, D.C., something like that. But obviously the headliner is the 42nd president of the United States and his wife, Hillary Clinton. Do you have any indication, Congressman, that Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton plans to testify before your committee?
Well, I've been chairman of the House Oversight Committee for 1.5 years, and I've issued a lot of subpoenas. I've never once lost a subpoena battle in court. We do it the right way. And obviously, when you subpoena a former president, your odds aren't the best at getting them in if you look at history. But what makes this different is this subpoena was approved in a bipartisan manner by a subcommittee vote. So you had Democrats and Republicans on the record voting to subpoena that whole list you showed. And there were Republicans and Democrats on that list. In addition to those subpoenas, I also subpoenaed Pam Bondi for the Epstein files.
Yep, you asked for the quote-unquote full, complete, unredacted Epstein files.
Yep.
Has the Attorney General indicated that she will give you that?
Well, I know that President Trump has indicated that he's going to release what they have on the Epstein files. I take him at his word. But again, I was ordered by Congress, by my committee, to take the lead in this investigation. We're doing that. We're doing that in a bipartisan manner. It was a bipartisan vote. And if you look at the subpoenas, they were bipartisan in nature. We want to get the answers to the American people. And look, I can tell you, I'm in Kentucky right now. Everywhere I've been in Kentucky this week, people want to know about the Epstein files. Are we going to get the Epstein files? Will we ever know the truth? And that's what we're trying to do on the House Oversight Committee.
I know you say you've been successful in court, but as you also acknowledge, Congressman, this is sort of a different beast, right, with what you're going down. So when you're talking about a former president or even the Attorney General, if they don't comply, what leverage, if any, do you think that you hold or have over them?
Well, certainly, if someone doesn't comply with a subpoena, we've seen it happen in the past in both my committee as well as on the January 6th committee when the Democrats had the majority, and you can hold them in contempt of Congress. And with a Republican Attorney General, that's something that I think that the Clinton legal team's going to think long and hard about. You're not going to have a lot of sympathy probably from the Trump DOJ if the Clintons failed to comply with a bipartisan, congressionally approved subpoena, which is what that was.
Would the same apply to Pam Bondi if you don't get what you want?
I think that would apply as well. Look, Congress is very clear in this. Republicans and Democrats, we expect the American people to get the truth about the Epstein files. I never would have thought this issue would have raised to this level. But if you had that discharge petition that Ro Khanna filed, if we voted on that in September, I think that would get over 400 out of 435 votes on the House floor, which is unprecedented for Republicans to cross over and vote for a Democrat discharge petition.
Okay.
But look, that's all we hear from our constituents. And we've made it clear with the White House that this is something the American people expect. This is something the president's base wants. This is something that obviously Democrats want. So we're going to do everything we can to get it. And so far, we're working in a bipartisan manner.
Last one for you here, and then I want to move to the other investigation. Todd Blanche questioned the number 2 over at DOJ. Questioned Ghislaine Maxwell the other day, and there's a conversation about whether those transcripts, either the audio or the transcripts, will be made public. Do you believe that you are entitled to those as well?
Well, certainly it's something that we have an interest in. We do plan on interviewing Maxwell, or rather deposing her. I sent her a subpoena as well. We're very serious about this investigation. We want to certainly not do anything that would interfere with the Department of Justice investigation of Maxwell and of the Epstein saga. But at the end of the day, I've been ordered by Congress to take the lead in this investigation, and we expect to get everything that we can legally get. And certainly those transcripts are an item of interest to the committee.
The Biden investigation, Congressman, you said 3 weeks ago, and this is moving to the other one, in which your committee has oversight of and has been widely talked about. You said 3 weeks ago that the Vice President, Kamala Harris, the former Vice President, and the former First Lady, Jill Biden, quote unquote, should be subpoenaed. That was, I believe, 3 weeks ago to the day, Congressman. Do you expect that to happen going forward at some point?
Well, I think it was Byron Donalds, a member of our committee from Florida, that said they should be subpoenaed, and I was asked about that, and I said certainly they're people of interest. So that's something we're looking at. Obviously, you showed the list of people. We're going to have Jean-Pierre and Anita Dunn and Ian Sams and some other insiders come in. We've already interviewed around 10 people, including Dr. O'Connor, President Biden's White House physician. So we're batting about 500 in that. Half the people, they've all come in. Half the people have answered questions, and the other half have pled the Fifth Amendment. But we're going to do everything we can. We're trying to move at a rapid pace. For Congress, I think you would agree we're moving pretty fast, because Congress isn't known for its speed and efficiency. But we're trying to get to the bottom of that, and hopefully we'll have all the people that we need in very soon. Once we get through that list you showed. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. I guess what I'm getting at is if you've already subpoenaed, as you mentioned, in a bipartisan fashion, Bill Clinton and Pam Bondi, what's to stop you from saying, okay, we're going to do the same on a much different case, obviously, for Kamala Harris and Jill Biden? It seems like maybe, and I don't know, I don't want to put the words in your mouth, Congressman, of course, but it seems like, is that on the table? I guess is what I'm getting at.
It certainly is. We're going to see what these other Biden White House insiders say. If we go back to the subpoena for the Clintons and all those attorneys general in both parties, again, that was voted on in a bipartisan manner. The Democrats on the committee voted for that as well, which is unprecedented. Now, with respect to the auto pen investigation, the Democrats haven't really wanted to participate in that because they don't think Donald Trump has any liability in that. I don't think it's any secret why they're interested in the Epstein stuff.
Former President Biden, New York Times interview just a few weeks ago. He said Republicans who claim that he didn't make the clemency decisions are, quote unquote, liars. He said, I made every decision, end quote. Do you take Joe Biden at his word there, Congressman?
No, in that same interview, he also said he didn't know who all those people were that he pardoned. He delegated that to his staff. So he admitted in that New York Times interview that he delegated the pardon process to his staff, and they used the auto pen to sign his name. That's not how the pardon process works. So, Joe Biden has some liability now from that interview. Then you take what Hunter Biden said about the Ambien that no one knew about, and how often, that's what Hunter Biden said was the reason that Joe Biden did so poorly in that interview. Perhaps that's what they're going to say he did so poorly in the Hur interview, which we have the video of. And let me tell you, the Hur interview was a lot worse than the presidential debate interview.
What do you mean by that?
At the end of the day, well, I mean, he sat there for a lot longer period of time. He couldn't answer simple questions like what year he was vice president. I mean, this is very concerning. And you understand once you watch the video of Robert Hur, why that Robert Hur put that in his report, that he wasn't going to prosecute Joe Biden for mishandling classified documents because he felt like the jury would be sympathetic to a forgetful, frail old man. That's a pretty damaging statement in a special counsel report. And when you see the video, you understand why he wrote that. So these insiders that we're bringing in on the auto pen investigation, they were the only ones that had access to Joe Biden for more than a photo op amount of time. And that's why we're bringing them in. And I can tell you, the ones that have spoken, it's very concerning, some of the things they've said. And we're very concerned about how that auto pen was used.
Okay.
And there's really no evidence that's emerged that would prove that Joe Biden knew exactly what was being signed with that auto pen.
All right. And as I mentioned, that's what he says in the New York Times piece. Let me leave you with this, Congressman. There's a story in the state of Kentucky where you are with us tonight. And it says, quote, Governor Comer, question mark, the most popular man at Kentucky's biggest political rally is open to it. You see the headline there from the Courier-Journal. Governor Comer, is that a goal of yours at some point to possibly be the governor of Kentucky?
Well, it's something I've always been interested in. I don't think it's any secret. People that know me know that's always been something that I was interested in. Governor Beshear's term limited. He can't run again. We've had a Democrat governor 47 out of the last 55 years. I think there's a desire for a Republican governor in Kentucky. So that race is in 2 years, but I'm getting a lot of encouragement, and we'll make a decision probably in a year. But
probably
so far,
in a year.
so good.
All right. Hope we speak to you before then. James Comer, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Of course. With me now, Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor, former chairman of the D.C. Democratic Party. If I were to ever have a legal issue, I'd pick up the phone and call him. I hope.
Former prosecutor, too.
Former prosecutor. There we go. I hope we speak on other terms. But it was interesting because you heard the congressman there say, you know, I acknowledge essentially it's a different beast with Bill Clinton.
Sure.
And the subpoena there, the actions that the committee wants to know about him and his involvement with Epstein is after his time from when he was president of the United States. Do you think he ever heads up to that building and gives testimony, or anywhere else?
Odds are that he doesn't, but there are a lot of steps after issuing a subpoena. First of all, it's got to be for information that is relevant, probative, and material generally in regard to testimony and connected to what you're investigating. Here, this oversight committee tends to have an idea, have a thought, and say, well, let's investigate it. The maybe, if you will. Usually you have information already, the documents that he doesn't have yet. You usually review the documents, and if there's some smoking gun documents or witnesses in those documents, then you have a basis to issue a subpoena for live testimony. I anticipate both Clintons and the attorney generals and anyone else that's gotten a subpoena is going to fight that subpoena, either through the negotiation or by going to court or arguing that they don't have any testimony to offer that would be relevant to this investigation.
All right, hang around. You'll be with us on the other side. Still to come tonight here on the Hill. Apple sinks its teeth into the U.S. economy. What the company's $100 billion investment might mean for you. Look at that, Tim Cook in the Oval. Other side of the break. On NewsNation, moments ago, President Trump, Tim Cook in the Oval Office. The two side by side there as Apple announced a big investment. The president very much on the record pushing Apple to make products in America. But experts say that could, if it were to happen, hike up prices for iPhones, for example, by hundreds of dollars. But a consensus was reached, and it included a very big number.
Today, Apple is announcing that it will invest $600 billion, that's with a B, in the United States over the next 4 years. That's $100 billion more than they were originally going to invest.
It comes as we are now about 5 hours away from the president's tariff deadline. 5 hours and 12 minutes, give or take. Also just a day from another deadline that the president had thrown out, the one giving Vladimir Putin to reach a ceasefire deal with Ukraine. This earlier today, Steve Witkoff, the president's right-hand man, right side of the screen, meeting with Putin in Russia. The president, though, saying that even though the meeting had some progress, there could be a one-on-one with Putin and Trump in the days to come. Full panel here with me now. Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor. Back with me, Lauren Tomlinson is a Republican strategist. You know him, host of The Hill, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, Chris Steyerwalt, and Kelly Meyer, NewsNation Washington correspondent. Hello to you all. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Appreciate it. It seems like there's a lot going on right now. You've got the tariff, basically the new world order on tariffs in 5 hours, and the president trying to figure out what to do with Putin as he set this Friday deadline as well.
I mean, the president had a great win, I think, today with the fact that Putin came to Witkoff with such a positive meeting on both sides, the Russians and the U.S., issuing great statements. I think that he's going to take the win there, that he can actually move the ball forward a little bit.
But how do we know that the ball actually move forward? Because it's kind of like, fool me however many times at this point, you don't start to believe it until it actually happens.
Until it actually happens.
Right.
And I think that's what you have to take what they're giving at this point and acknowledge that progress was made, because this is the first time that Putin has come to the table with concrete negotiating tactics of things that they will not move the ball on. So we don't know exactly what those are, what Putin told Witkoff, but the fact that there was something so concrete, I think, is a positive step. What's interesting with the other deadline is, I'm curious more so of what, as part of this tariff deadline, how far does Trump go with the energy, right? Like the tariffs on countries who import Russian oil. So how much of this is tied together?
Like what he did with India today.
With what he did to India. You think about it, it's China, it's Turkey, it's Brazil, it's EU countries. So how hard does he go on those countries to force this deal?
Whenever I negotiate a case, and this isn't a case, but it's a case of international magnitude, what does the other side want, and what do I have to offer them? What can the U.S. offer Putin in order to make him stop the killing and the bombing? Other than we want peace,
their economy,
and he wants Ukraine. With the economy, he's gotten around a lot of the tariffs, a lot of the sanctions already, and we'll get around the secondary sanctions. But we're on two different pages here. We want peace, and Putin wants Ukraine, and he's more than happy to go after Ukraine with bombing, and he's got North Korea involved as well. And so, progress or not, he's still a KGB agent, and I got to tell you, he doesn't have to do anything in these negotiations but continue to drive forward because he wants Ukraine. On the tariffs, the countries who are subject to these tariffs can continue to negotiate after this deadline. But Donald Trump creates uncertainty in the economy and with big companies because he's all over the place with them. He threatens, he pulls back, he puts more deadlines in, and that's called uncertainty. And every business I've ever represented wants certainty.
What are you hearing over there at 1600?
I mean, this is a critical moment for the president. He's been pushing and talking, well, both tariffs and Putin, but I was more so referring to the trying to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. Right. This is something that clearly has frustrated him. He wanted to end this on day one. It's continuing to go on. His stance on Putin has changed over the last few weeks. You saw every time we're in the Oval with him or elsewhere, he's frustrated with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The question to him I would have is, what exactly are you going to say to get him to finish this, to make a peace deal, and whether or not they will meet and get this done. On the tariffs, it's interesting because we're seeing, and we've been talking a lot about the Fed chair position. He's been talking about floating those names. Does he name his Fed chair, who he would have as replacement for Powell? Because we're also seeing the tariff and the potential impact on all of these rates, and just what is going to be the impact on the economy going forward, because there are people and his supporters that are complaining.
I have to say, I find it all very interesting, and I don't know what Vladimir Putin will do.
Right.
But I do know that the domestic costs of taxes on imports are showing up in the data, right? And you can fire this person or you can fire that person, but the drag on the economy is real. And the great thing about markets is they don't have a party.
Right.
And when you see the grind in there about what's happening to prices and the upward pressure on prices, we could make it so that we could shut off Russia's fuel to the world. We could certainly do it. What would the effect on U.S. gasoline prices would be? Up through the roof. So none of this happens in a vacuum.
Right.
And this happens where the most important issue to every American voter always is their economic well-being, and that's what's at stake.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Still to come tonight here on The Hill. It is Christmas in August. I'll explain. I promise you. My take next. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, she'll be talking to the State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce, John Bolton as well. A whole lot going on in the world, as you just heard. 7 minutes away here on News Nation. So what am I talking about with Christmas in August? Other side of the break.
I'm wrapped.
Just stick around.
Trying Trying to catch up on the top stories. Here's what's trending right now on thehill.com. That big redistricting story is one thing, that is politics. This is another. The Democrats who fled to Illinois forced to evacuate their hotel after a bomb threat. Obviously don't want to see that. Number two, you knew this was coming. DHS after Alligator Alcatraz. How about this? The Speedway Slammer, a detention facility in Indiana on the horizon, in South Park. They've been going after President Trump. That is one way to put it. Now the creators are joking that they are ready for a subpoena. If you want to check out these stories or what else might be on the Hill, all you have to do is scan that QR code on your screen or head on over to thehill.com. All right, time now for a story that might make you a little sappy before we head on out. But then again, who would have thought you'd be hearing about Christmas trees in August? But it turns out, after an arduous competition and selection process, the 2025 White House Christmas tree we now know will be supplied by the Corson's Tree Farms from Montcalm County, Michigan. This is the winning team who referred to this as their Super Bowl. It's the first time that a tree from Michigan has been selected in 41 years, by the way. You might want to know that with 16, North Carolina has supplied the most White House Christmas trees since the tradition was started by Benjamin Harris in 1889. But in addition to the good news for Corson's Tree Farms and the Wolverine State, it's also good news, you could say, for partisanship, taking a back seat. I don't know, maybe one way to look at it, because in addition to the tree that they're supplying for the Trump White House, back in 2015, they were one of the top finalists to be considered and then decided to gift an 11-footer to the Obama White House. Hopefully you see more of this type of merriment in D.C. in the months to come.